Hi, I'm Crystal, and today we're going to be making a folio. This folio has got a base and 4 flaps, and 2 of the flaps have large pockets. So this is based on a special kit from Elizabeth Craft Designs. This came out quite some time ago, but it was a very full suite with lots of dies and a stamp set, but the availability is low because it is an older kit. I do have some non-affiliate shopping links below if you're interested. Certainly Elizabeth Craft Designs makes great products, but I've also got my measurements in the description box if you would like to try my version. So first I got out my materials. I got out paper, scoreboard, some brads, a punch, and then I'm going to set to work. Now I've made each piece of this project from a different color of paper so that you can easily see what I'm doing. And I just have a 1-inch circle punch and a little tiny hand punch and a craft pick to make a hole for the brads. And that plus the scoreboard is going to really be everything that we need. So I've got my base here, and then my 2 side flaps. And the side flaps are just a little bit wider than the base, and then the pockets are a little bit narrower, and then I've got the top and bottom flaps. So we're going to start by doing a little bit of scoring. So I've got these 2 side pieces in the base, and you can see the base is 5 inches wide. That aligns with the size of journal I make most often. And then my 2 flaps are just 1/2 inch wider than the base. So I'm going to take my little scoreboard and score those at the 1/2 inch mark. And I think the benefit of doing something like this yourself rather than using a die set is partially that you can make them any size. So the Elizabeth Craft Design die set is meant to work with their planner essential size, whereas this I can make my custom size. So once I've scored, I'm going to take these flaps to the edge of the table and use that to reinforce that score line. It's a handy trick because the edge of the table is always there and it's nice and straight. Once I've reinforced those folds, then I can go back and take a look at the next step. And that would be for the top and bottom flap, which I'm also going to score at the 1/2 inch mark. I've allowed a nice generous size for that flap so it'll be easy to work with. And I'm also going to take those to the edge of the table to reinforce that score line. So now that everything is scored, we can go ahead and attach the flaps. I'm going to use some double-sided tape. You could use liquid adhesive, certainly. But the double-sided tape is going to give a nice firm hold and does not have any drying time, so we can get through this video quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and seat the flap and the base together, make sure they line up, then I'm going to remove the tape and press it down. So I've got a nice square fit. Then I'm going to put the next piece of tape on the next flap, and I'm going to go ahead and fit that onto the base. I do think it's important to go ahead and fit the flaps around the project as you go, because the project is going to get thicker and thicker with every layer, and you want to make sure that you are allowing for this to fold back up as we finish. So now I've got these 2 pockets, and since I have got them out and I've got my punch out, I'm going to go ahead and just mark the middle of the pocket, and I'm going to put a little thumb notch there. Not really required, but I've got the punch out and I can do it. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball the middle of that hole and just do 1/2 a punch. That allows enough space for you to get your thumb in to take out any contents of the pocket. I rely less and less on my eyeballing skills the older I get, so I think marking the middle of the pocket is probably a good idea. Once I've got everything marked and get my thumb notch out, I'm going to take a little bit of glue and I'm going to glue this onto the side. I debated using tape here, but I definitely wanted a little bit of wiggle room to get that pocket in exactly the right spot. I want it to line up with the flap that it's attached to, and I don't want to have any weird overhang, and I was a little afraid I couldn't get that right with double-sided tape. You just don't get that little bit of adjustment time. So once I get that pocket into place, I'm going to move on to do the next pocket. I am going to use a little paperweight just so the glue gets a second to grab. Then I'm going to just put glue on the 3 sides of the other pocket Same methodology, glue that down. Just little second of wiggle time if I need to make sure that it's exactly aligned with the flap. Press down on the glue, move my paperweights over just so we can just get a second of grab. Now we can attach the top and bottom flap. So I'm going to go ahead and use the double-sided tape here because I can fold it around the project as I go. Once I've got the tape in place on both flaps, I can use my craft pick to kind of loosen up the edge of the release paper, and I can kind of fit this around my project. Now that I've got that in place, I'm just pressing down that double-sided tape, and I'm going to do that for the upper flap as well. Since I want the flaps on the outside, I definitely want to make sure that I've got enough space to do that. Getting that flap into place, then I can release the release paper and press down the double-sided tape. And that is really all the steps to building the folio. Now I want to make a cute little closure for my folio. So I've got that circle punch out. I'm going to get a little scrap of paper that was left over from cutting all the pieces of the folio, and I'm going to get out some circles. So I've got these little circles. I'm going to make one of those little thread, I don't know what you call those, where you twist the thread around the two brads, but I'm going to use my little punch to make a hole in the middle of my piece of paper. And I'm going to get out my couple of brads, stick the brad through the paper, and then into the top flap of my folio. So my eyeballing skills are weak. I want to measure so that I actually get this in the middle. Once I've marked a spot on the top, I'm going to mark a spot on the bottom, and I want to make sure I've got enough space for my little circle. So I'm going to measure some height as well. So my circle punch here is a 1-inch circle punch, so I want to make sure that I've got at least 1/2 inch, which is the radius of that circle. Then I'm going to make a hole for the brad to go through here. Won't fit on the bottom, so glad I got out my craft pick because I can make my hole with the craft pick. Then I'm going to stick that brad through the decorative circle, and I'm going to attach a little bit of cord, and I'm going to attach that to the little piece of paper just so it doesn't come loose as I work. So brad through the circle, brad through the folio. Then I'm going to put another piece of paper on the back. That's for stability. Going to do the same on the bottom flap. And then I am going to cut one extra circle, top and bottom, just to cover up the legs of the brad. So here's where I'm attaching the little bit of cord. And I did fiddle around with this for just a second. I don't want too much adhesive to show because I don't want to glue the little circle down to the flap. I just want enough adhesive for the thread to attach. So a little bit, but not too much. And then I'm kind of folding up my little bit of double-sided tape so I don't have too much exposed. And then here we go with the thread. Okay, now we're ready to attach it. Put my other circle for stability, and then I'm going to cover up the legs with yet another circle. I'm going to do that with some double-sided tape so it will adhere to the legs of the brad. And then we are really quite finished with this folio. So the thread will keep the whole thing closed, and I can decorate to my heart's content, and I've got a custom size folio that I can use in the size journal that I prefer to make. So it's really a pretty simple process. I've got my measurements if you happen to make a lot of 8.5 by 5.5 journals, but you can easily adjust to whatever size you work with. And I appreciate the inspiration from the Elizabeth Craft Designs project, but I certainly did not have $90 in my budget to buy a specialized die set for that specialized size of folio. So I think this was worthwhile. I certainly will enjoy having this fun interactive element to add to my journals, and I hope that you will give this a try for your own journal. Thanks for joining me today.